Well, Jesse, we're joined by Darcy Higgins, who's the Executive Director of Food Forward. And we're hoping to have a chat about local food policy and urban agriculture today. And Darcy, I think we'll just jump right into it. I guess the place to start is we have Agriculture Canada. We have a Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs at the provincial level. Why is it that you think we need a municipal food policy?
Good question, Joel. Thanks for having me today. I think local food is important because there's a lot of ways the city deals with food. Of course, the province and the federal government deal a lot with agriculture policy, farming. There's kind of a lack on food policy at those levels as well. But the city deals a lot with, the city has a lot of land, it has a lot of connections to food, provides land for farmers markets, it provides meals to students and to childcare and elder homes, and a lot of land that parks could be using for food. And so there's a lot of connections that the city has, and a lot of ways that it could improve the health of people by doing the things that it does.
And as we're talking about the residents of our city, I know the concept of a food desert, which is a relatively new concept to me, but for our listeners, that's an area of the city where residents, because they may not have access to public transit or other ways to get to a store or a source of good, healthy food, actually don't have access to good nutritional food options. They may have access to food, of course, but not access to good nutritional options. And Darcy, I wonder, this concept of a food desert, how are they created and how prevalent is this problem in Toronto?
Yeah, so a food desert is the idea of not having food available in the area that you live. A lot of places in the city have access to convenience stores, but not grocery stores or farmers markets or other ways to buy healthy, fresh produce. And so it's actually quite a prevalent issue in Toronto. Over half of Torontonians don't have a grocery store within a kilometer of their house or their apartment, wherever they live. It's an issue in many cities. Toronto has it too, especially in the suburban parts, a little better in the core where we have a few more grocery stores and a bit more dense population.
In terms of addressing this problem, what specific policy changes would you like to see coming out of City Hall to address this problem of residents who may not have a grocery store within a kilometer, who may not have access to public transit or other ways to access good, healthy, nutritional food options?
Right. Well, one thing I'd like to see is the city planning more for food. So in the way that we plan for transportation, transit, plan for economic activity, even businesses, we could plan to make sure there's food in every neighborhood by giving advantages, tax advantages, say to stores or grocery stores that want to produce food on the streets where grocery stores are missing. Thinking about how we can do this, other creative ways like working to partner with organizations that provide food in, say, I actually saw a video in California today where there's a little store that wants to expand to put healthy food boxes in convenience stores, which already exist. In the U.S., there's a lot of liquor stores in neighborhoods where there's no grocery stores. But here we could do things like that. We could do more, like Food Share does good food markets and good food boxes in areas that don't have the stores, so people can at least have easier access to get those foods. Also, improving transit all throughout the city would be an improvement.
Darcy, it's sometimes easy to point the finger at the city councillors or other policymakers and ask what they should be doing to make the situation better. My question is, what should I be doing to help with this problem?
Right. That's a great question. There's a lot of ways to make a difference. You can make a difference in what you buy, but in the kinds of foods you buy that can help local sustainable farmers. But that's not necessarily something that helps in the issue of access. And so we look for government to step up in that area and get involved by volunteering in organizations throughout the city, like Food Share, like the Stop, organizations like ours that do advocacy, and get involved so we can build a strong enough movement to be able to talk to counselors and staff about these ideas.
Darcy, I was at the Brickworks not very long ago, which is a wonderful facility we have here in the city of Toronto, and they have some demonstration gardens around urban agriculture, and it really struck me as a very interesting topic. I live in an apartment building, so the extent of the urban agriculture that me and my partner are able to engage in is a window box with some herbs, some chives and other things growing in it. And I think it's a really interesting idea, but my concern, I guess, is if I own a home around soil contamination, or I live right at Jarvis and Carleton, I worry a little bit about air pollution affecting the quality of the food that I might get out of my own garden. How can we deal with that?
Well, the city allows you to test your soil. So if you have a home where you have some land that you want to grow in the garden, you can do a soil test before you start gardening to see if it's an appropriate spot. There's a move to allow gardening in boulevards, which is currently allowed in most of the city. And public health is working on that to look at if there's streets that maybe people shouldn't be able to do that. In apartments and such, you've got pollution from sources like cars, but then the food that you're getting from the farms also has pollution depending on how it's grown from the tractors and highways and such. So it's hard to prevent at any time. So at least if you're growing it at home, you kind of know exactly what you're putting in it, and you can go from there.
And Darcy, I'm going to change gears a little bit here to an issue that's near and dear to my heart, since, as some people know, back in 2006, I ran for school board trustee, and I'm a longtime supporter of a group called Toronto Educational Opportunities Fund that deals with student nutrition. And Toronto Public Health tells us that we have an increase in youth malnutrition. We have increases in youth obesity. We know for a fact that if students get better nutrition, they get better educational outcomes. We see a decrease in obesity. We see an increase in physical activity. What is your group doing around student nutrition, but also what can and should the rest of us be doing when it comes to the topic of student nutrition?
Right. Well, it's a great point, and you're right on all of those points. Student nutrition, just to start off your day with a good snack or meal is so critical. We've been advocating for the student nutrition program to be well funded by the city. That was a topic that came through in the budget discussions, and councillors were working on that. Now that the budget is finished, the program in Toronto is funded partly by the province and partly by the city. And so as the provincial election comes up, it's a great idea to talk to your candidates in the election coming up and your MPPs right now to say that you support student nutrition programs, and then even expanding that to food literacy, which last week 55,000 students all did a big crunch of an apple at one time, and there was a move to educate students about where their food comes from and how to eat healthy. So that's all important.
Excellent. Now, Darcy, just before we wrap up, if people like what they've heard from you and they're excited about this idea of doing some advocacy around food and pushing food forward, I wonder how can they support your organization? Is there a way that they can get involved?
Yeah, people can become members of Food Forward by going to our website, which is pushfoodforward.com. We have a membership sign on there, and a lot of events that we do. Try to have events every month, talk a lot about politics, a lot about local food issues, access, and all of this, and lots of ways to volunteer and share the word about these issues, and find out ways to talk to your politicians as well.
And if I'm not mistaken, they can find you on Twitter as well, can't they, Darcy?
Yeah, we're at pushfoodforward on Twitter.
So that's pushfoodforward.com, and as Darcy said, there is a membership option there, and the work they're doing is very important work. If you like what you've heard, I think Darcy'd really appreciate it if you'd visit the website and have a look at that and consider becoming a member.